a ship that disappeared without a trace only to reappear weeks later, abandoned and shrouded in questions. What happened to its passengers and crew? Why was the ship left adrift miles off course? And what clues did this ghostly vessel leave behind? This is the haunting mystery of the MV Joyita. In the early 1950s, the South Pacific was a world apart. Vast, remote, and dotted with small islands connected by trade routes that crisscrossed thousands of miles of open ocean. For the people living in these isolated communities, the sea wasn't just a lifeline. It was their highway, their livelihood, and sometimes their greatest threat. Amid this expanse of blue sailed the MV Joyita, a vessel with a storied past. Originally built in 1931 as a luxurious private yacht for a Hollywood director, the Joyita, meaning little jewel in Spanish, had once epitomized glamour. But by the 1940s, its glory days were over. During World War II, the ship was repurposed as a military patrol boat for the U.S. Navy and later sold to private owners who transformed it into a modest but reliable merchant vessel. It wasn't flashy anymore, but it had earned a reputation as a tough, seaworthy craft. By 1955, the Joyita was owned by Captain Thomas Dusty Miller, a seasoned British sailor who had spent decades navigating the Pacific. He was well known and respected in the region, a man with a deep understanding of the ocean's dangers and its unpredictable moods. If anyone could safely pilot a ship through these waters, it was Captain Miller. On October 3, 1955, the Joyita departed from the port of Apia in Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands about 270 miles to the north. It was a routine voyage expected to take no more than 2 days. On board were 25 people, including 9 crew members, 16 passengers, and a cargo of medical supplies, food, timber, and other goods for the remote islands. Among the passengers was Dr. Alfred Dennis, a respected physician traveling to Tokelau to perform surgery, a testament to the importance of the voyage in such remote communities where access to medical care was rare and often a matter of life and death. Spirits were high as the Joyita left Apia. The weather was calm, the sea steady, and there was no indication that anything would go wrong. But as the hours turned into days, something strange happened. The Joyita didn't arrive in Tokelau. Initially, radio operators assumed the ship had been delayed, perhaps due to a mechanical issue or a minor navigational error. Delays weren't uncommon in the South Pacific, where unexpected problems could add hours or even days to a journey. By the 3rd day, however, concern began to grow. The ship's radio had fallen silent, and there was still no sign of the Joyita. Word spread quickly, and soon a massive search effort was underway. Planes and ships scoured thousands of square miles of open ocean, but there was nothing. No debris, no distress signal, no sign of the Joyita at all. It was as if the ship had simply disappeared, swallowed by the vastness of the Pacific. 5 weeks later, on November 10, 1955, the mystery took a chilling turn. A merchant vessel navigating the waters near Fiji spotted something unusual in the distance. At first, it looked like an unassuming piece of flotsam, a dark shape bobbing on the waves, but as the crew drew closer, they realized it was a ship, the missing Joyita, adrift and abandoned over 600 miles from its intended route. The sight was haunting. The Joyita, once considered unsinkable, was listing heavily to one side with its deck partially submerged. Yet despite the damage, the ship was still afloat, a testament to its sturdy cedarwood construction. But where were the crew and passengers? The vessel was eerily silent, with no sign of life on board. When rescuers boarded the ship, the scene they found was even more unsettling. The Joyita looked like a ghost ship, its interior in disarray, with cargo scattered everywhere. Boxes of medical supplies opened, and blood-stained bandages found on deck, with no explanation for their use. The lifeboats and life rafts were missing, along with personal belongings and the ship's navigational equipment. In the main cabin, the ship's radio was tuned to the international distress frequency, but its antenna was broken, rendering it useless. Rescuers noted that the radio would have had a range of just 2 miles in its damaged state, making it impossible to call for help. Adding to the mystery, the clock in the cabin had stopped at 10:25, as if marking the exact moment something went horribly wrong. The Joyita's engines were another puzzle. The main engine wasn't operational, and the auxiliary engine, a smaller backup, was covered in blankets, suggesting someone had tried to protect it from damage. Yet the ship was still seaworthy despite its listing. It wasn't sinking, and there was no immediate danger to those on board. So why had the crew and passengers abandoned it? The ship's logs were missing, along with any documents that might have shed light on what happened. Rescuers were left with only fragments of a story, signs of a hasty departure, and no indication of where the crew and passengers had gone. As the Joyita was towed back to port, the questions only deepened. What had caused the crew to leave a ship that was still afloat? Why had they taken the lifeboats but left behind vital supplies like food and water? And why was the ship so far off course, drifting aimlessly in the middle of the Pacific? One of the leading theories centers around mechanical failure. The Joyita was far from perfect when it departed Samoa. The ship's main engine was already known to be unreliable, and some reports suggest that a leaking pipe caused water to accumulate in the bilge, creating the appearance that the ship was sinking in a panic. The crew may have believed the Joyita was about to go under, prompting them to abandon ship. But here's the problem. The Joyita wasn't sinking. Its sturdy cedarwood construction made it highly buoyant, even in a damaged state. Abandoning such a vessel would have been a last resort, and yet the lifeboats were gone, suggesting the crew had no intention of staying on board. Another compelling theory is that the crew misjudged the situation. The South Pacific is known for its strong, unpredictable currents, and if the Joyita had been taking on water even temporarily, the listing angle might have convinced the crew it was doomed. But why weren't the lifeboats found? Did they drift too far from the search area? Or was there something else, something more sinister, that prevented anyone from surviving? Then there's the possibility of foul play. The Joyita's cargo included medical supplies and other valuable goods, which could have made it a target for pirates. The waters of the South Pacific weren't lawless, but piracy wasn't unheard of in the 1950s. Could the crew and passengers have been attacked, forced overboard, or taken captive? This theory gains traction when you consider the missing personal belongings and navigational equipment. If pirates boarded the ship, they may have taken anything of value before abandoning it. But again, no evidence of a struggle was ever found, and piracy remains speculative at best. One of the more chilling theories involves a rogue wave, a sudden, massive wall of water capable of capsizing ships. Rogue waves are rare but devastating, and some believe a wave might have struck the Joyita, flooding the deck and forcing the crew to evacuate. But the ship was still afloat when it was found, which complicates this explanation. Why abandon a vessel that was clearly capable of surviving such an event? And then, there are the stranger ideas. Some have suggested that the crew might have encountered something unexplainable, a phenomenon so terrifying that they felt compelled to flee. Stories of ghost ships and sea monsters have haunted maritime lore for centuries, and while there's no evidence to support such theories, they speak to the enduring fear of the unknown. The Pacific Ocean is vast and mysterious, and the idea that the Joyita could have encountered something beyond our understanding isn't entirely dismissible. Finally, there's the haunting possibility that we may never know what happened. The ocean is an unforgiving place, and its ability to erase evidence is unmatched. Whether the crew succumbed to dehydration, storms, or even internal conflict, the lack of physical evidence leaves us with nothing but speculation. The Joyita, like so many ghost ships before it, carries its secret to this day. The story of the MV Joyita didn't end with its discovery. In fact, its legacy only deepened as the ship was salvaged and returned to service. But for many, the Joyita was no longer just a vessel. It was a symbol of maritime mystery, a ship that seemed cursed by its own unanswered questions. After being repaired, the Joyita was put back into operation, but its reputation preceded it. Sailors were reluctant to crew the ship, convinced that it was haunted by the spirit of its missing passengers. Some claimed to hear strange noises coming from the hull or feel an unsettling presence when on board. Whether these accounts were genuine or simply fueled by the ship's eerie history, they added another layer of intrigue to the Joyita's story. The ship eventually fell into disrepair and was abandoned once more, this time intentionally left to rot. The Joyita became a relic of its own mystery, a physical reminder of the day it was found drifting in the Pacific, empty and unexplained. But the legacy of the Joyita isn't just about its haunting presence. It's also a reminder of the vastness and unpredictability of the sea. Even in an age of advanced technology and modern navigation, the ocean remains a place where mysteries unfold, where entire ships can vanish, and where answers are often out of reach for maritime historians and enthusiasts. The Joyita is a case study in the unknown. It's a story that challenges our understanding of human behavior, mechanical failure, and the raw power of nature. How do you explain a ship that was still afloat yet completely abandoned? How do you account for 25 people who disappeared without a trace? And how do you reconcile the eerie details, the stopped clock, the bloodstains, the missing equipment, with the absence of any definitive answers? For the people of the South Pacific, the Joyita is more than just a mystery. It's a cautionary tale, a story of how even the most routine journeys can take a turn for the unexplainable. It's a reminder to respect the sea, to acknowledge its power and its ability to keep its secrets. And so the Joyita remains one of the ocean's most enduring enigmas. Its story has inspired countless theories, sparked debates among experts, and captured the imaginations of those who dare to wonder what really happened that fateful day in 1955.